Welcome back to the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. I'm Aaron, and I'm joined, as always, by my cousin Landon.
Good day.
What's up, man?
Not much. Not much, man. I mean, it's a busy weekend. It's a decorating weekend.
Oh, really?
Do you decorate your place like for do anything for Christmas?
You
Little
know,
tree.
I didn't last year because I wasn't sure how my dog would respond, and so I still haven't decided this year if I'm going to. In years past, I have. I have a tree. I have a pre-lit, you know, artificial tree that I can put together. But I just have not decided if that's something I want to make room for, and if
Yeah.
that's something that I know that I can count on crypto not peeing on at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always that. That affects the holiday spirit. The smell of dog urine.
Yeah,
You
yeah, it really drowns out the smell of pine.
It drowns out.
All right, before we dive in, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to catch all of our latest content. We got shenanigans galore going on around here. So
Again,
today,
shenanigans.
why not? I
Oh,
love the word. I
me
love it,
too.
and I'm going to keep using it.
Please.
Today, we're getting back into our new series that we're calling Popcorn Psychology, where we take a look at popular characters from both film and television and break them down from our completely amateur psychological perspectives. Who better to go with than one of America's favorite telekinetic prom queens, Carrie White?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And boy,
Boy, howdy.
yeah, there's a lot to unpack there.
No, okay. I'm assuming you have seen. There are multiple versions of Carrie.
I've seen them all. Yeah,
There's obviously a novel, a very famous novel. Stephen King's first fully published novel was Carrie,
yeah,
and was also his first film adaptation. Well, I
yeah.
might add, Brian De Palma directed with very famously Sissy
1970,
Spacek. Was it 76?
1973? Oh, okay. 76. I don't know why I thought
I could be
73.
off on that.
I'm gonna look
Do
while
it.
you're
That's what
talking.
Google's there for.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So we've got that version. We've got there was an early 2000s version that they made for TV that really changed things a lot, if I'm remembering correctly. Um, Now, spoiler alert,
1974.
74. We were both off by a couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wait, you said 73. You were closer. Man,
I'll take it.
Price is Right rules, you win.
That is the way it should be.
And then there was a version with oh, what's her name? Chloe Grace Moritz as Carrie.
Yeah.
And that one was the most recent, came out in the mid 2010s,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe about 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Uh so it's obviously, got its fan base and got its reasonings for being made and remade over and over again. Um Personally, I think it's one of those, if I were a teacher in middle or high school, either one, this would be required reading for my students. It is a cautionary tale about bullying, if ever there was one.
Yeah.
Um, Now we're gonna get into this a little bit. So here's what's wild about Carrie. I'm just wild about Carrie, and Carrie's wild about me. Oh wait, it's
I hope
Harry.
Carrie's not wild about you.
I hope not. Yeah, I'm gonna wind up electrocuted in the gym. We've got this teenager who is basically trapped between two equally toxic environments. At home, she's got Margaret White, her mother, who is probably the most terrifying mom in horror history.
Yeah.
And I mean, aside from Jason Voorhees' mom, right?
Yeah.
And then at school, she's
Well, in
dealing
all
with.
fairness, Jason Voorhees' mom, she loved her son.
She did, and
She
I
cared
think it's
about her son.
questionable. I think it's questionable whether or not Margaret actually loves her daughter.
That is, yes.
Very questionable. And then at school, Carrie's dealing with some next level bullying. And I mean, this is not just mean notes being shoved into her locker. This is like horrible things that should never happen to a child in a school situation. I mean,
Yeah.
these are horrible things that shouldn't happen to somebody who has been sent to prison for life. This
Yeah.
is, I mean, she is brutally bullied by the popular girls at school. Um, what stands out to you the most about the way Carrie is treated at school?
Well, I mean, without being too graphic here, because we have some young listeners,
Right,
I mean, there is a coming of age moment for Carrie, and she kind of discovers her you know, her monthly womanhood, in a very, well, I mean, private but semi-public setting, with other girls. And instead of other girls, or somebody being there to help her, they were abusing her, or making fun of her. But the worst part about it was obviously all of that was set up. It was almost like the pins were set up by her mother, and her family, her home life, by not being aware of that possibility. And
right.
so she was truly frightened that something was wrong. Something was wrong with her, that she was in
She
danger,
was dying.
that she was dying. And so obviously other girls didn't know, but they're just making fun of a situation. But it was, I mean, really, I mean, you think about like the setup for that. She was made to be someone weak, and she went into an environment that devours people like that. You know
Oh
what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's really what it, I look at the school setting, and a lot of these things, the way that the kids were, just thinking about how kids can be, it's not that they're, obviously what happens in the final night is a crazy extreme situation. But other than that, these are things that we see, right? It's really that last one that's the most extreme. Anyway, it's just a constant about abuse and oh my gosh, yeah. What about you?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right that she was set up for failure, and set up to be a very weak individual and going into this situation where you're right. You show weakness at school, and God help you. This is a place where the strong devour the weak. They don't come alongside you and offer encouraging words and help you get back on your feet. No, 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 no. They kick you while you're down.
Right.
And I'd love to say that things are different now in a more uh, evolved society. 40 years later or 50 years later. But that's just
No.
not how it is. We're in a world that where people look out for number one, and anyone who there. So I'm not saying everybody's a bully, right? I think that everyone has been on both sides of that coin at some point, very possibly, where you found yourself, maybe you thought of something witty to say at someone else's expense, and it got a laugh. I mean, that's in a way that's bullying. But on the other hand, you very easily could have been somebody who was picked on the playground at some point. Maybe not every day by the school bully, but you know, if he's going to find a chink in your armor at some point, he's going to expose it.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I feel like everyone has experienced bullying on one side or the other at some point, and it is just it's really I don't know where I'm going with this. It's just really sad to think about how how there is no it feels like there's no compassion sometimes.
Right.
I feel like you do have kids who will see bullying happening and they want to do something about it. They want to step in, but they rationalize not stepping in because, well, what if then they turn their attention on me and I'm the one who gets bullied?
Yeah.
So then you've got the situation where what's the saying, all it takes for evil to succeed is for good people to do nothing.
Well, right,
Um,
right. And there is, I think there is a person, right, that does recognize, right, that does that does see her and feels remorseful for being a part of it, so it's like you have a couple of different things going on at the same time, right? You have, well, for those who've seen them, most people haven't read the book, right? I mean, you and I have read the book, but if you're thinking about the movie, you of course remember the popular girl and her boyfriend John Travolta, right?
Yeah.
And them, right? And their part in it. But you also had the other girl, Sue, that was, and her boyfriend that was the prom king,
Right.
So homecoming, is it homecoming or prom?
Prom.
Prom. So, you have, because I think that that's probably the difference here is like there are moments like that, right, in high school, right? There's moments where you have, somebody who things change so much. It's amazing how epic that 4 years can be, right? But it is
Oh yeah.
epic, and things and dynamics, and I was telling this to my kids recently, just that there's a hot topic and it changes all the time, right?
Mm.
There's a hot topic, there's a person, and even in the hierarchy of things, there's a hot topic that goes. But one of the girls does have remorse and feels concerned and convicted about the situation that had happened. And there are attempts there made.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's just not enough. It's not going
Yeah.
to be enough. And actually, with the best of intentions, really set her up in a horrible situation. Who's really responsible here for the death of all these people, honestly, Aaron? I mean, you've got to ask yourself, is it
Yeah.
really Carrie? I mean, I don't know, you know?
No, it's the blonde chick. What's her name?
Yeah, yeah,
Parkinson or
yeah.
whatever. I can't remember her first name. John Travolta's girlfriend.
Right, right,
Uh,
right,
yeah. All of that set up. Yeah, Sue does what she can to try and help. And, but she's doing it behind the scenes. She's not letting Carrie know, hey, I'm
right.
sorry. I care about what happened to you.
That would have been helpful, right?
Right. To actually apologize to her face to face, I think would have meant more. But to set her up with her boyfriend to go to the prom is suspicious. And her not being able to go to prom also looks suspicious. And then when she shows up at prom because she's excited to see that Carrie and her boyfriend won prom king and queen, uh, again, looks suspicious. And so when you've got the bad guys over here planning this thing, they rig the election so that Carrie wins
Right,
prom queen.
right,
And then, of course, we all know what happens. They dump pig's blood all over her,
right,
and the bucket falls, hits the dude in the head, kills him, and suddenly her mind is just filled with all of these things that have been drilled into her head for years, and her mother saying, they're all going to laugh at you. They're all going to laugh at you. And that's all she sees. She sees there's one person in there laughing, the chick with the baseball cap. She's the only one laughing. But Carrie sees them all laughing.
right. Did you notice?
Even the gym teacher
Right,
who was so, kind to her.
right. But do you also notice how the book and the movie kind of go in a little bit different directions with this, and how that plays out? Because like I remember when the movie happens and she is covered in the pig's blood, like it's like there and happening in that moment.
Hmm.
Versus the book, she actually like remembers and is like, oh yeah, I have telekinesis. I will kill them all.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah, it's a
like there's
conscious decision.
it's completely, one is a reaction. And in fact, I found that the movie didn't really, I can't remember if it showed any sort of pre not meditation, but like an understanding of her telekinetic ability. Whereas in the book, it's like she's been doing it since she was a kid, but never talking to anybody about it, just like moving little things here and there. Do you remember that?
So in the movie, she does. She studies a little bit.
Oh, okay.
When she starts to realize, like the movie doesn't really delve into her past, where she's been doing these
Right,
things
right,
from as a small child. Like in the book, and even in the remakes, they've talked about how there was an incident where she had been talking to her neighbor,
Yeah.
the teenage girl lived next door, who was
Right.
out sunbathing, and of course this sends Margaret over the edge. Margaret
Right.
brings her into the house to go into the prayer closet, and from there, little Carrie, she's what, 3, 4 years old at this point,
Right.
throws a fit, and this gigantic piece of furniture flies out the front window
Yeah.
of the house, and suddenly there is a rain of stones, but it's only on the White property, like it's only
Yeah.
hitting their house.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so you see glimpses of that kind of thing happening, but in the movie, and when the Sissy Spacek version, uh, she really only comes to grasp the fact that she's got this ability after the locker room incident,
Right.
when she causes some of the light bulbs to explode.
Right. Right. Right.
She flips some things off the principal's desk, and then she starts looking into telekinesis and is practicing. She practices at home. Um, so yeah, she has a firm grasp on the fact that this is something she can do. Now, at the end, in the movie version, I do think there is a difference between her reaction in the book and her reaction in the movie. In the
Right.
movie, she's covered in blood, and then I think she's
She
overcome
snaps.
with
She
emotion,
snaps. Right. She
and
snaps.
she's not there anymore.
Right.
She, like, her conscious mind is not in control.
Yeah. And hats off to
And
Sissy Spacek, by the way, because she really played. I mean, she looked like
seriously,
one who had been. I mean, she's just like,
well, she doesn't
remember
blink
her
for the next
hands?
15 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. A
You
big difference. Yeah.
I don't think that she's aware of herself or what's happened until she gets home and gets in the bathtub. And then after that, I think she's herself again.
Yeah.
But again, you brought up the book. In the book, she is on a conscious um mission, not just to destroy the school and
No.
everybody in it, but the
Right.
whole
Now.
freaking town.
Yeah. And
Like,
she remember she does
she's
that
a path
blast
of
with her mind.
destruction,
Right.
like
And she
all
does
the way home.
and she does that blast with her mind to everybody so that everybody knows it was her. Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, huh. Yeah. So, all right. So we're doing the popcorn psychology here. So I guess, yeah, cautionary tale,
Yeah.
about bullying, but relevant and really timeless, right? So thinking about the capability of one who is bullied and thinking about how her mom affected, because I like to talk about the mom for a second and the home life.
Yeah,
The
well,
prayer
definitely.
closet, like that's interesting. I mean, you and I both grew up in a, Christian home, and but we've obviously both heard or maybe even known some people who've kind of, I don't know if you ever knew anybody who grew up in hardcore fundamentalism or dispensationalism or things like that. You know what I'm talking about? Where you had like
Yeah.
people who were like, you know, grew up in like hardcore homes that were. Did you ever know anybody like that?
No, not really. I mean, even pastors' kids that I knew, there was never anybody who
Right.
struck me as. Now, of course, as a young child, I wouldn't have recognized it, I'm sure.
No.
But looking back, I don't think that I ever knew anybody who, uh, I mean, comparing it to this is impossible.
Oh no,
Because
of course, but
Margaret White has obviously weaponized religion against her own daughter.
right, right,
Um,
right.
and so I can't say that I've ever known anybody whose families were like that.
But to
Um,
the extreme of someone like abusing their child and using like the Bible or using any religion really, if you think about just like using that on that person and beating them down into submission
mhm,
because of their issues, obviously it's not true religious, devotion as much as it is a power control over somebody else.
right,
Um, and obviously she's broken too, the mom, whatever her name is, Miss White.
Margaret.
Margaret, yeah. So she's broken. She had been, she got pregnant like out of not married. She had
They were
been
married.
abused, or she was married.
They were married. Yeah.
Oh,
But they
okay.
were both but they were both uh this fanatical religious whatever. They both sort of had the same beliefs, but he could not apparently he could not control himself, his libido, as it
I
were.
see.
And even though they had agreed that sex, even within the confines of marriage, was a sin, uh, he gave in anyway.
And so
And
this is the
and so that
result.
resulted in Carrie's,
Right.
conception. Um, Now in the book, I believe it talks about she tried to abort the pregnancy
Right.
herself,
Right. Right.
which is a horrible thing to think about. Um, but the father died in an accident before Carrie was even born, and
Yeah.
so Margaret was left to take care of this child on her own, who she views as a punishment for her sin.
Right. Right.
I mean,
And that's why
what a
she's so
horrible
resentful.
thing. You've got a child that's been brought into the world, and I mean, you're a parent. Your children are a blessing, right? I mean, that's how
I
parents should be
mean,
looking at their children.
for the no, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
It depends on what day it is.
Yeah, but you're right. I mean, so that constant abuse, yeah, yeah. Have you noticed how like, Carrie, I, I'm just thinking about if you put Carrie in like a Harry Potter film, I'm just thinking about how, you know, Harry went to the Dursleys, Harry was in the cupboard under the stairs, Harry could make things happen. You ever make things happen? You know what I mean? And yet he I guess he wasn't put in an extreme enough situation where he would
He didn't
kill
turn
his child.
evil.
But at the same time, he had Voldemort imprinted on him. So I'm just watching these two things and I'm like, hmm, I wonder, I wonder the wizarding world. If there had been a Hogwarts, I think Harry could have been okay. Had there been a
No.
Hogwarts.
Margaret never would have allowed her child to go to Hogwarts because magic is of the devil.
Well, somehow, Mrs. Dursley did. So
Now, do you think that Margaret actually practices or believes what she preaches, or is it all about control,
well,
or a little both?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. I mean, it's when you have somewhat of a codependent relationship with your religion, in such a way that there's not I have a hard time looking at it like she has a personal relationship, and the reason why is because it involves you're thinking about humility, you're thinking about recognizing your own sin and failures, you're thinking about the grace that's been given to you, you know what I mean? And there is like none of that for Carrie. Not that you can't, you don't have people who are in relationships with their kids or their parents where they aren't skewed and affected and living multiple lives, but to me, everything that she's putting out has far more to do with control, whether she recognizes it or not. That's me. But
Yeah.
what do you think?
Um, yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit of both. Um, it's one thing I think about though is with as far as Carrie herself, you know, home life or not, like whatever's going on at home. Um, you can't help but wonder if somebody had stepped in, like so we talked about Sue trying to make things right at the last minute,
Right,
but still like pulling strings behind the scenes, not actually going to her and trying to be a friend.
right,
What if somebody had gone to her even a year before and
right,
tried to be a genuine friend to her,
right.
uh, give her someone she could cling to outside of her home,
Yeah,
someone she could cling to at school where she is still likely to be uh, horribly bullied by the popular kids.
right,
Um, how different would things have played out? Would things have
right.
played out the same? I feel like it's a possibility all of it could have been prevented. But I think people ask the same questions about and I know this could be a trigger warning, but whenever we have a school shooting and we dive into the psyche of the person who you know went into the school with a weapon, you know, do we look at that person and think, oh, you're just a psycho, and or do we step back and be like, what could have been done to prevent this? I mean, I know the talk is always a talk of gun control versus mental health, but in all seriousness, what could have been recognized? Could someone have stepped in and been a friend to that person to prevent what actually happened? Um, so almost I know that it's you can't really compare those things because one is a sad, tragic reality and the other is obviously fiction. Um, but you do still have the same kind of thought process, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously complex issues, but ultimately, in any sort of situation, I think in a school setting especially, there should definitely be an awareness of teachers and faculty, I mean, and also just you know, just thinking about how obviously there's archetypes. There's always so much, just societally, there's always so much focus on certain archetypes, in society or even in micro society of schools and stuff like that. And there's so many more people. There's so many more people that are beside you. I was talking to my daughter about this, about how, there might be one personality over here that's just always the one that everybody's looking at, talking to, thinking about, just their personality. But over here, and that person says something derogatory and it just is hurtful. Then there's this other person over here who's just always there and is nice and cordial and all that, but that doesn't get as much fanfare or focus, because there's all this focus on over here, and so it's like in any sort of situation, there is a people are not so alone as they think they are, when they're going through things. And I think sometimes just somebody connecting and validating can be like a huge difference for anybody, whether it is an extreme bullying situation or it's something at home or it's isolation or anything. Validation is huge, whether it's kids or adults. And that's the thing here. You said it earlier about Sue. It's like Sue was trying, but Sue didn't just come out and say, I'm sorry, right? Or at
Right.
least I don't remember that happening. And
No.
so, yeah, I mean, gosh, I mean, heavens, she just really literally didn't have anyone, right?
Yeah.
The one thing I wanted to bring up that I thought was a parallel to this, in the fourth season of Stranger Things, you have Elle who is on her own, isolated, kind of, and not having friends or anything like that in her new school setting. And she has this situation, spoilers, where she is uh, similarly thrown into a ruse at a skating rink, and in reaction to that, she does something extreme. Now, it didn't involve powers, right? But it definitely was an extreme where she hits this girl in the face with a skate. That's one of the skates,
Yeah.
and but I think to myself, oh my gosh, had Elle had her powers,
Uh-huh.
I mean, that skating
Prom night
rink,
all over again.
yeah, it could have been prom night, right? So, it's interesting. Obviously, still a relevant topic, that's intriguing to even have something like that again. And who knows if that was a little bit of a throwback. They usually are pretty good about doing throwbacks to earlier eras, right?
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest, I thought the same thing. Watching that episode, I was like, oh man, if she had her powers,
Woo,
all these kids would be
woo,
dead right now.
woo.
They'd be upside down, doesn't matter where they're at.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, any final thoughts? How should we diagnose Carrie? I mean, she's got a lot of trauma there. I would say there's some PTSD, for sure, dealing with
Depression.
mom.
Depression.
Oh, absolutely. And geez, I mean, I don't know. Beyond thinking about post traumatic stress disorder, I can't really think of another. That's I mean, I feel like that's really the big one from, and that obviously stems from years of abuse with her mother.
Right, right.
Um, but geez, it's so crazy to think about how things should have been different if she had been raised by someone who actually loved her
Yeah,
instead of saw her as a burden and a punishment from
yeah,
God.
yeah,
That's just crazy to me.
yeah.
Uh, we're gonna switch gears and get into the pop culture pulse. And we've been on the Stephen King adaptation kick. Have you seen the trailer for HBO's upcoming It? Welcome to Derry.
I have not seen the trailer yet.
It just
So,
came out a few days ago.
okay, got it. All right. So no, I haven't seen it. So how does it look?
It looks terrifying. Um,
That's
they've
great.
so they've got Pennywise obviously is back. It's a prequel series. It looks like they're really leaning into like a 1950s or 60s aesthetic, which is cool. It looks like a lot of it's going to revolve around the black spot. If you're familiar with the book or the even the movies, they mention it briefly that in the past this was a not really a speakeasy, but it was almost like a pub that was built and run by black people, and it became a very popular spot in town, not just for black people, but the main equivalent of the KKK decided to show up and
Oh my
destroy
God.
it. And so that was the kind of the big precipitating event at the end of Pennywise's cycle at that point in his history. And
Oh, I see.
so it looks like the trailer really heavily revolves around that place, its existence, and obviously you see a lot of just flashes of scary things that are going to be happening throughout the series. um I don't know much about like characters who's going to be in it. I do know that Mike Hanlon's grandfather is a key player.
Oh, okay.
um but other than that, it's exciting to see Skarsgård come back. Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Scar- Skarsgård.
Skarsgård.
Yeah, he's back as Pennywise and just as terrifying as ever.
So do you think it's going to be something where you have this, obvious this racism thing going on, right? And that
Mhm.
Pennywise is picking people off, and then there's like blame, and there's like things like that, like he's taking advantage of a bad situation in the
Yeah,
chaos.
I mean I feel like that's what it does, right?
Right. Right.
If there's something bad going on in town, uh, it's going to take advantage of it in such a way that you know people aren't going to care enough to look into the supernatural uh aspects of what it is causing to happen, but they're going to point fingers at each other. And that's part of the sickness of Derry, right?
Right.
That the town itself, the area itself is
It's
cursed.
messed up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So they choose not to see what's really there.
Right. Right. Well, I am looking forward to that.
Good.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
me
in the
too.
middle of chapter two. I watched chapter one again yesterday morning, and then chapter part of chapter two. I was just in the
Of it.
mood. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I haven't watched it in a while.
I still look at those and I'm really impressed by the way they did things with the remakes.
So good.
Now I still have a special place in my heart for Tim Curry as
Of course.
Pennywise,
Yeah.
that original.
My
But
my son was like, because he's watched them. He's he goes, when Tim Curry like goes to bite, he goes so slow. He's like, ah, and he's like, I just like move my arm, right? I'm just be like,
Right.
what are you
Just pull
doing?
away.
You know, he's like, versus the new one, he's like, "Arr," you know what I mean? He's just like a
Yeah.
shark, you know? So,
That's called special effects.
ah,
Only so much you can do back in 1990 on a television budget.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, moving into our recommendation corner, I got nothing for recommendations this time. I tried to come up with something good. Landon, do you have anything for our listeners, readers?
Silo on Apple TV, Silo with Rebecca Ferguson. Season 2 has aired, and we are, I think, one or two episodes in. And they're releasing, I think, weekly. Silo, for those who have watched it, the first season started out a little slow. And then about halfway through, you're in it to win it. And by the end of it, you are on the edge of your seat. And season 2, episode 1 did not disappoint in being the same boring first episode. Thank you for being consistent. And I'm going to, on good faith, wait for a few more episodes to hopefully not nod off, you know? So,
I think that's why I stopped watching. So I did get into season one at first. I think I
yeah.
watched the first two episodes and it didn't hook me, and so I stopped watching it.
Yeah, you got to get halfway through. By the time you're, I mean, honestly, you're get more hooked in. It's good. I mean, Apple kind of does this a little bit, I think. So, but I'm hopeful. You know, we'll see. We'll see.
You're a lot nicer than me. I with TV shows, if you don't have me by the first or second episode, I'm out. I'm not. If it's gonna take me, like, if of course I say this now, I'm a different person than I was 10, 15 years ago. If I had had this attitude when The Office first came on, all right, I never would have watched that series because
Yeah.
I would have seen the first couple of episodes of season one and be like, huh, no. And I'm here, I'm one of these people who tells people like, dude, if you haven't seen The Office, get through season one, get into season two, and it'll be great. After that, it's fine.
I sometimes have to have a recommendation. There's been a few shows like that where I really do have to have someone push me through. And then I've tried multiple times. Like what was the one This Is Us. I've been recommended that. That's so many people. And I have tried, and I just can't. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I
No.
just can't.
That's another one. I watched the first two episodes of that one. That one actually made me mad because of the writing.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the very first episode, they talk about how they were in, like, they talk about how old they are, right?
Right.
When the pilot episode came on,
Right.
they were the same age as me, okay?
Right. Right.
Which implies that these people, Justin Hartley and his, sister and brother, were
Yeah.
born in 1980. All
Right.
right. They talk about the Challenger explosion and watching that on TV in second grade. No, 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 no. That's not when that happened. We were in kindergarten when that happened, son.
Right. So
And I'm just like,
you're a
so
little in
I'm out. You lost me at, I mean, it's very simple historical fact, and you got the timeline wrong. I can't believe in your show anymore.
If I felt that way, I couldn't have gotten through Lost. I had to make a lot of exceptions for Lost, you know.
I mean, okay, so that's, I mean, but that's one thing. Lost is a mystery suspense
You're right. This show
fantasy.
isn't. It's like you
This
can't
Is
lose
Us is
anything.
built in reality.
It's built reality. That's true. That's true.
I can suspend belief for a show that involves time travel. Okay. If there's
Yep.
no time travel in This Is Us, they wouldn't have been in second grade when Challenger exploded. I'm sorry. No, you lost me, Mandy
Yeah.
Moore. You lost me.
Right. Right. Right.
Uh, all right. Yeah, that's a good recommendation, Silo. I really need to get into it. Give it another shot. But that does remind me. Shrinking on Apple TV Plus. Have you watched that one?
I am on the last episode.
Okay.
So I need to finish the last episode at the wedding.
I've also from the first season. Okay. Second season is out now.
Oh, okay.
Um
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
there are a few episodes in. I think I'm a couple episodes behind. but so far it's just as good as the first season was.
Okay. So I'll
Um,
just need to push through then. I've been kind of meaning to get to that through that last episode. So,
they've introduced Brett Goldstein as a character,
oh,
not the actor as a character, but
okay.
like he's on the show now as a
Yeah.
character, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah.
Um, but if you like old Roy from Ted Lasso, tune in. All right, we don't have any listener comments to share this week, but we would, of course, love to hear your thoughts. What other characters should we cover on Popcorn Psychology? Drop your suggestions in the comments. Let us know what you're thinking. What do you think about Carrie White? How would you um, diagnose her various issues, and should she be medicated? Probably. Uh, but next time, we are going to be talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 4. All right, so make sure you're subscribed and got that bell thing going so you don't miss our Star Trek shenanigans. Uh, Landon, any final thoughts?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah,
Be nice to people. You never know if they have
nice.
telekinetic powers.
Seriously, you don't know what's going on in somebody's mind.
No.
All right, I'm Aaron. That's Landon. This has been the Show. Have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.
See ya.